Creating an adventure for your players can be one of the most fulfilling parts of being a GM. This is much more challenging than using a published one, but it lets you express yourself, be even more creative, and tailor the game directly to the players and their characters. Adventure plotting can start at many different points. You might begin with a particular antagonist, then construct an adventure that fits that villain's theme and leads the group to them. Alternatively, you could start with an interesting location, then populate it with adversaries and challenges appropriate to that setting. One of your most important and rewarding tasks is getting to know your players and what makes them tick, then implementing plot hooks that speak to their motivations. If your players all like similar things, maybe epic storylines or tactical combat, your job will be a bit easier. For most groups, though, there's a mix. You'll want to include a detailed NPC who appeals to one player's low social scenes, a powerful villain to engage a player who likes winning against overwhelming odds, and exotic animals to attract a player who's into having animal friends. If you're not sure what your players enjoy, just ask them in advance. Considering player motivations doesn't mean assuming you know what the players or their characters will do. It can be risky to expect PCs to react in certain ways or take certain paths. Knowing their motivations helps you put in elements that will appeal to your players, but their decisions will still take the adventure in unexpected directions. The important thing is getting the players engaged, not predicting the future. Think about the emotional and thematic touchstones you want to hit during play. Good games elicit strong emotions, and planning for them can give an emotional arc to an adventure in addition to the narrative arc. Consider what you want players to feel as they play. Is it triumph? Dread? Sadness? Optimism? None of these will be the only emotions that come out, but they'll inform how you build the settings and NPCs. The adventure recipes we'll get to later will give you steps to effectively implement theme and feeling. You can give players variety through the types of challenges the group faces, the locations they explore, the NPCs they meet, the monsters they face, and the treasure they acquire. Even if you're building an enclosed dungeon, you don't want to place a combat in every room, or exploration will quickly become stale. Think in terms of sessions. If your group gets through 5 scenes per session, how do you make one game session feel different from another? Maybe 2 of the scenes in each are fairly basic combat encounters, but if you make the other scenes different, or even if you set the encounters in different environments, the sessions won't feel repetitive. Also think about the tools used to solve each situation. Maybe one requires complex negotiations, another brute force, a third sneaking about. Aim to give everybody something compelling, ideally targeted at their motivations. The following adventure recipes are procedures that help you build an adventure's skeleton or outline. You'll then go through and flesh out the details of the adventure, including adversaries and locations. As you play, you'll keep adjusting to fit the events of the game, and anything you haven't already introduced can be changed as needed. Just like with any recipe, you're meant to adjust the details to fit your group's preferences. You might stray far from your starting point, and that's okay. These recipes use 8 steps. You might want to look ahead and make choices out of order based on what's most important for you to convey. The catch-all term opposition refers to the various adversaries and obstacles the PCs will face. The opposition should be thematically consistent, but not necessarily monolithic. It might contain multiple individuals or groups who might not get along with one another. Styles are the overall vibe of your game, such as a gritty game, dungeon crawler, high adventure. These frameworks offer guidelines for the number of sessions and types of encounters that work best. Threats are thematic dangers to incorporate into your game and ways to evoke them as you play. Style and threat are the core parts of your recipe. Motivations determine more specifically what the opposition's goals are. The story arcs section gives you guidance on how to construct story arcs that will play out over your adventure and maybe beyond. The NPCs and organization section discusses how to include characters and factions that fit your theme. Locations are adventuring sites and settlements featured in your adventure. Encounters are the individual rooms and locales within your adventuring sites, including the creatures and hazards found at these places. Finally, treasure is the reward you give out to characters after dealing with encounters. Page 69 of the GM Core includes frameworks with basic elements to get you started outlining an adventure. Slot ideas from the threat section into this structure, then customize as you see fit. I'm not going to read all of these because there are a lot of them, and frankly no one's listening to this anyway. Instead, I'll just link the page I'm reading in the description. Think of each type of threat as the deep, visceral danger the enemies represent. NPCs should be avatars of the threat, whether they're enemies who represent different aspects of it or allies and bystanders damaged by it. Each threat entry gives a brief description, followed by some bullet points you can use to guide you in expressing the consequences of the threat. This, in turn, is followed by monsters that typify this theme. And, as always, you can come up with your own thematic threats too. Threat 1. Corruption. The opposition wants to weaken or even change the motivation of a place, person, institution, ideal, or group. Show the effects of corruption on people and places, especially those closely connected to the PCs. Once safe areas become less friendly and present threats, Allies become unable to help or even turn against the PCs. Make enemies subtle, patient, willing to allow rumors, lies, diseases, and poisons time to take effect. In battle, they might be satisfied to inflict PCs with long-term afflictions and then retreat. Contrast the corruption with education, healing, and working towards betterment. When the PCs make progress, allow them to expose agents of corruption and to inoculate allies and neutral parties against the growing threat. Recommended foes include... How on earth do you say that word? Aboleths, fiends, rakshasas, and undead. Threat 2. Devastation. The opposition wants to destroy or lay waste to a place, person, institution, ideal, or group. Show the effects of destruction on people and places, especially those the PCs hold dear. Show them desperate, devoid of resources, and psychologically changed. Make enemies hard to reason with and overwhelming in number. In battle, they want not just to win, but to kill, maim, or devour. Contrast devastation with forces of preservation and order. When the PCs make progress, show the slow recovery from devastation. Recommended foes include dragons and demons. Threat 3. Extremism. The opposition seeks a massive change, one they think is for the better. Their violent means of achieving it put them in conflict with the PCs. Demonstrate the ruthlessness of the enemy, especially the discrepancy between their care for their cause and their ambivalence or hatred towards everything else. Have enemies focus purely on their goal. Have them fall back on their rhetoric or dogma to justify themselves. If something about the extremist cause is just, such as preserving the natural world or protecting their people, reveal the foe's sympathetic side. Demonstrate the horror of what they're fighting against, in addition to the horror of the way they fight it. When the PCs make progress, show uncertainty or demoralization in their foes, possibly even desertion in their enemies' ranks. Threat 4. Mayhem. The opposition is a force for mayhem, without any greater plan or long-term goal. It might be a mindless force of violence, such as a wounded beast, or a thinking foe that simply revels in causing chaos and damage. Mayhem is easy to track and find, often leaving a trail of destruction in its path. Show how the senseless violence causes uncertainty and fear, disrupting both settlements and the natural order of things. A single powerful foe is a common source of mayhem, but a pack, herd, cult, or secret society could also be to blame. The source of the mayhem might have resulted from the natural order being out of balance, or might be a distraction set off by a different foe looking to use it to further its own goals. Emphasize the cascading effects of unchecked mayhem. Normal trade, farming, migration, and similar systems are disrupted, causing problems far from the immediate violence. When the PCs make progress, show how resilient systems can recover from massive disruptions but might need additional help or protection. Recommended foes include beasts, dinosaurs, drakes, or giants. Finally, Threat 5. Subjugation. The opposition wants to dominate a group, location, or even the world. Their ultimate objective is to control and rule. Show how groups submit to subjugation, rather than suffer the consequences of resistance. Have the PC see elements of culture destroyed to ensure subjugation. Are religions and churches destroyed, subverted, or replaced? Are lackeys put in place to keep oppressed populations in line? Make enemies self-righteous, focused, and in control of groups they have previously subjugated. Fights aren't just for the sake of violence, but steps towards greater control. Show resistance, open conflict, rebellion, secret groups, sabotage, and countercultural art, and give PCs the opportunity to support or participate in each. When the PCs make progress, have previously cowed or neutral parties be moved to rebel. Recommended foes include devils, dragons, hags, or hobgoblins. Think about your opposition and what their goals and motivations are. The motivation of the opposition needs to match your threat. If you have multiple adversaries, their motivations should all work towards your theme, but they might have different goals and act more like rivals or enemies to each other. Motivation should also be more than one-dimensional. There should be a reason for every action the opposition takes. Not necessarily a good one or a smart one, but a believable one. Consider these questions so you can use the answers when deciding what the opposition will do. What does the opposition want? Who or what does the opposition fear? And no, the PCs don't count. Why is the opposition sure to succeed? If the PCs don't do anything, what makes the opposition unstoppable? What are the opposition's weaknesses? How can they be bribed or tricked? What's something they ignore that might be used against them? Keep several story arcs in mind. Most of these will be driven by the opposition in the early going, but the PCs might initiate their own arcs too. Think of what the beginning, middle, and end of each arc might look like. Imagine a logical endpoint the arc would reach if nothing else changes. Then adjust it based on game events. As changes occur, revisit the endpoint you imagined. If the adversary's plan has been derailed, what might they do instead? Story arcs should reflect the theme of the adventure and be well positioned to show off motivations. Many arcs will last only for the duration of one adventure, but others build up and recur across the whole campaign. Include some of each for variety. This also provides closure, as the players can see some storylines wrapped up in the short term and others over a long period. Too many dangling plot threads can result in some being forgotten or make the players feel overloaded. Touchstones like the following make a story arc adaptable, not too restricted to specific scenes or characters. Use motifs. Use repeated thematic elements, visuals, phrases, and items to reinforce the connection between one adventure and another. The motif can also build in complexity as you move further along in the overarching story. Follow character growth. Respond to how the PCs changed in previous adventures. Their next undertaking should reflect who they are now. Escalate. Build on the previous story and show that the next threat is scarier. The first adventure might endanger a village, the next a city, the next a whole nation, and so on. Bring in recurring characters. A recurring character is especially strong if they appear in similar circumstances each time. For instance, a merchant who travels the world might appear in the campaign only when she wants the PCs to undermine her rivals. Finally, make each adventure count. While developing an arc, don't diminish individual adventures by making what happened in them inconsequential compared to the larger story. Illustrate the consequences of such adventures so the players feel accomplished for completing one before moving on to the next. Each adventure needs some sort of denouement to show immediate and lingering effects of the PC's victory or defeat. Allied, neutral, and adversarial NPCs and organizations can all contribute to the theme. You'll want most to follow the theme directly, like the threat examples from earlier. However, you can add a few counterpoints to the theme. For example, a horror game might include one or two NPCs who are more hopeful, either to grant respite from the dread, or to kill off to show just how bad things are. Including NPCs who aren't adversaries makes the world feel more real. It also increases the stakes, as PCs have people to care about, protect, and socialize with. You'll often find that NPCs you create will become more or less important than you expected. You can demote an NPC if the players don't find them interesting, or promote them if the PCs like them more than expected. Memorable settings that include mysterious and fantastical locations can elicit the player's curiosity. Exploring each location should be a treat unto itself, not just a chore the players complete to get from one fight to the next. As you create your locale, picture it in your mind's eye, then write down minor details that you can include as you narrate your game. Describing decorations, natural landmarks, wildlife, peculiar smells, and even temperature changes can make a place feel more real. Beyond monsters and loot, your locations can include environment-based challenges, ranging from environmental conditions like blizzards to puzzles, traps, and other hazards. These challenges should suit your adventure's location. Walls of brambles in a castle ruin overrun with vegetation, pools of acid in a cursed swamp, or magical traps in the tomb of a paranoid wizard. A robust set of encounters forms the backbone of your adventure. Encounters often feature combat with other creatures, but they can also include hazards, or you might create social encounters in which characters duel with only words. Some adventures have a clear and direct progression, with encounters occurring at specific times or in a specific order. Others, such as a dungeon filled with interconnected rooms, are nonlinear, and thus the group can face encounters in any order, or even avoid them entirely. Most adventures are somewhere in between, with some keystone encounters that the group will need to contend with, but others that are optional. You can dole out treasure in all kinds of ways. Treasure could be items carried by an adversary, rewards from a patron for completing a mission, or a classic pile of coins and items inside a wooden chest. It's best to spread treasure throughout an adventure rather than stockpiling it in a single hoard. This gives the players incremental rewards, letting their characters advance in frequent small steps rather than giant leaps separated by many hours of play.